First things first, Antonio. So what is the thing that is most people will get wrong about him is you start smacking the enemy because you want to think that you're doing a lot of DPS. You just keep hitting the enemy with your basic attacks without doing anything. That is actually a very incorrect way of playing Anton, and that's one of the biggest mistakes that we see. So how you actually want to play a rotation of Anton is go into your stun character first, get off, like let's say the enemy is stunned now, let's just assume this is 100 and stunned, then is when you start your Anton's rotation. So his typical rotation is not starting with a basic attack, but starting with his skill when he at least has some gauge of energy over here. So the key is his rotation starts once you hit the first threshold over here of energy. So you press E, and once you press the first E, immediately you will notice his graphics here, his power driver weapon that he has now starts to glow, and your basic attack now gets enhanced mode. So previously we were just bunga-bungaing with your basic attack that just did physical damage. Now I press it once, you can see his slashes, and now if I hold, so the combo now is like press once and then hold. So press once, hold, and then you will do this power driver attack that just zaps. So all these grey numbers is because this enemy is resistant to electric, but they are all now electric attacks, which builds up a electric anomaly very quickly, even though he's an attack character. So you can see, boom, he procs the shock now like that. Very, very quickly for a DPS character also. Normally, of course, it drains energy, and I'm just going to remove the cheat and show you what is the energy draining looks like. So I smack him once, and then I power drive. So one enemy hit drains about this much, and at the end of it, let's say I bunga, I burn everything here, you zap everything with your combo. So you can just basic attack, hold, and then after you finish this string, you can hold it again, poke again, basic attack, hold. And once he ends, he goes back to his normal basic attack modes. Now you can see he ran out of energy. So the power driver, you can also see it, it no longer has electricity. The graphic on it, the animation is no longer glowing as well. That's how you know whether you're in your enhanced state or not if you are not really too sure. So that is pretty much the reason why I said he prefers to have the enemy stun, because in this whole rotation, you realize that you actually want the enemy to be stunned so that they don't hit you in the process, make you lose your balance and whatnot, and you want to like quickly dish out the DPS that you can get. Another thing to note is that this move that he does, once you enhance the ability that he has, once you use the enhanced power driver, which is the E that you get, you are able to switch into another character. And let me just disable the amount of energy. And you can see here that the energy actually doesn't drop when he's off field. I switch it back, switch off, switch back. We will of course talk a little bit more in terms of cinema, whether that is a cinema basis. Mine is, my Anton I think is C6 as well, but we will touch on that in a little bit too. So last but not least, I want to talk about the nitty-gritty of this particular character, because pretty much the hard part is over, understanding how to fight with him. Where does he get his buff in the kit, and why do you want to activate it? He has two types. The drill is his basic attack, the drilling thing that I just taught you about. Power driver is basically his skill as well as ultimate. Those are considered as power drivers. I think it's something to do with like the way the thing hits, but basically he gets buff whenever he's using his drill rather than like punching them with his normal basic attacks. Slight damage buff here and there, and when you have multiple characters in the same team, when Anton is in his burst mode basically means when you press the E and you get enhanced mode, he gains for every 4 critical hits, the next attack hitting a shock enemy triggers an additional bout of shock, which means he works very well with shock proccers like Grace in the same team, characters like Unbi, and that is why you probably want to have a little bit more of a double electric when you're playing with Anton in your team compositions, which we'll talk about in the later part of this video as well. Last but not least is his ultimate ability, which is, I think, one of the better ones for A rank, is a massive AoE. So when I press Anton's out here, this whole thing that you see here is all an AoE, which is even bigger in my opinion than Alan's AoE in terms of the radius, which allows you to hit tons and tons of enemies. I think it's very, very fantastic. One of a very solid AoE attacking units for A rank. If you have Anton and you are considering building him, I think you will be very happy with it. I was playing with him in the final CBT with a team of Unbi and Grace, or you could swap out Grace for Rena as well. Very, very solid. So now, let's talk about his cinemas, and I always like to talk about A rank's cinemas first, because this actually does alter the playstyle quite a bit. Unfortunately, in that demonstration, mine is a C6 cinema 6 character, but let's touch through each of them. So the first one here, when drill attack hits an enemy Anton gains additional energy up to a maximum of 5 energy per skill use. This just helps him get a bit of refund as well when you're pressing your E, so you can build up the energy much quicker for this character. You can see overall he does want to hit that first threshold of energy a bit more, and thereafter his rotations does require him to have at least some energy. So a huge part of his kit actually revolves around energy restoration. Next up we have C2, M2, whatever you want to call it. When Anton uses his EX special attack, his E, the skill that procs his burst mode and enters the burst mode, he gains a shield that is equivalent to 7.5% of his max HP, while in burst mode, entering combat or switching reapplies the shield effect. This effect can be triggered once every 15 seconds, dissipates once burst mode ends, which is very nice and just a very good quality of life, especially if the enemy hits you because you're channeling it, or like the other sub monsters around the area like hits you, at least you won't take too much damage while he's in that combo channeling. So the game already like kind of hints to you that he's a channeling character that wants to fight enemies that are down. That's why some shielding is useful for him, because it does take quite a bit of damage. Shielding means that you don't have to build so much for defensive stats as well. 3 for C3 and C5 is just stats, so I won't talk too much about that. Let's go on to stat number 4. And when Anton uses a chain attack or ultimate, all members' crit rate increases by 10%. This is very nice. He becomes like a pseudo buffer for the rest of the team, helping you increase the damage for everyone and himself as well. So it's a free crit rate for himself and the rest of the team. 10% for a A rank character, I think that's quite decent, quite good for attack character buffing the rest of the team. Last but not least is his Cinema 6. When Anton's power driver attacks triggers a crit hit, his basic attack enthusiastic drills, this is the drill mode, the burst mode, the drill burst mode, which means it's the enhanced drilling, with the one that does electric attacks, and dodge counter deals 4% more damage for 30 seconds. That stacks up to 6 times. Remember, you can keep drilling after to just keep hitting that mass damage. So you want to hit the power driver attacks as much as you can once you have C6 to stack up to 6 times of this, so that you can do a whopping 24% more damage for 30 seconds. It pretty much is a very, very long buff as well. So now let's talk about the next thing, which is skill priority. Now that we've talked about him and how he depletes. For those of you who didn't catch it very quickly, you only drop energy when you actually hit enemies. Not like that's why when you switch him off field, you don't exactly exit the mode. But in terms of core skills that I want to talk about, A, C, and E gives him a lot of crit rate. Attack characters generally give crit rate, crit damage, which is very nice, since usually it's an exclusive stat in like other Hoyoverse games for S rank like 5-star characters. But it's nice that they decided to bring it down to all attack characters in general. B, D, and F increases the base attack, and by leveling it up, you increase the damage buff that you get from using power driver or drill attacks, which is the bulk of his damage as well, 24% and 40% for his enhanced basic attack respectively. So this drill attack is the enhanced channeling one that he does, the drilling that he does, which is very massive. 40% is very, very huge. So and of course we talked about this already, but now let's touch on something very more interesting, which is going to be the gear. What do I recommend for you to build on him? And let's start things first off with the easier part, which is talking about the main stats or the main sets that you want to go for. I think that is a 2-piece electric damage is definitely number 1. Regardless of like what stage of the game that you're at, I want to give you different options as well, in case some of you who are like slightly later into the game. So first things first, I'll go into a 2-piece electric damage so that you can get some bonuses from your shock as well. And after that, I do not think that the 4-piece here is as good, because when the enemy is in shock, attack is like increased by 28%. If you're not running in like a multiple shock team, you might not be proccing the enemy shock all the time. So the 4-piece actually is dependent on whether you are playing with a very good procker of shock. For example, like Grace, who procs a lot of anomaly based damage. Then in that case, I can recommend you go for the full 4-piece. Otherwise, if you're not going for the full 4-piece, you realize that a lot of his kit actually requires you to like proc crit here and there, which is why I think Woodpecker Electrode is actually a very, very contending set, I guess. One of the better sets that you can use, just because he needs to proc quite a bit of crit as well. So Woodpecker 2-piece, you can start off with like Electric 2-piece, Crit Rate 2-piece, and thereafter you can consider whether you want to go for a 4-piece for Woodpecker Electro. So you land a crit hit with a basic attack, dodge, or EX special attack, increases the equipper's attack for 9% for 6 seconds. buff duration for different skills are calculated separately. He generally can use like 2 of this, so you get a pretty nice buff already from them. So 4-piece Woodpecker Electro is another idea that you can go, especially if you're not that confident of keeping the uptime on shock. Maybe you don't have Grace, you are running him mono because you don't want to play like Anvi Damara or something like that. Those are some thought process. And if you are not planning to go for any 2-piece, 4-piece of the 2 sets that I recommend, I think the last option that you can consider, of course pen ratio is decent, but the one that matters a little bit more likely is going to be Swing Jazz, which is the energy regen that you get. He's a character that is super reliant on energy regeneration, and by sacrificing, let's say, a little bit of attack percentage for 20% energy restoration, you're basically helping improve your rotations. The faster he gets his energy, the quicker he can do his rotations, which is his key essence in his overall kit. Translating that into main stats, energy regen is probably number 1 for a character like Anton. This is really very massive for him. I can just show you, let me just find energy regen so I can show you the amount of main stat that he gets from, let's say, a maxed out one. You have a 42%, I don't have it maxed out yet right now, but a 42% energy regen just at level 9. That is almost double already the bonuses that you get from the main stat as well. So it's a huge amount of energy bump, which increases his efficiency so much on field. That's why I highly recommend you going for energy regen on your slot 6. If you can't find maybe the onset, because a lot of your people are wanting energy regen, I can recommend you go for attack ratio. I think that is probably like the simplest that you can go for. If you are looking for additional shock, there is another third category that maybe 5 to 10% of you might be going for. That will probably be Anomaly Mastery. Anomaly Mastery helps you speed up the rate of shock. But if you're playing with other characters, shock characters in the team, you can allocate the Anomaly Mastery to them instead. They can help out as well, proccing the shock rather than Anton himself proccing it. But he is pretty decent at proccing it. For Partition 5, very straightforward. Electric damage bonus is clearly number 1. Almost all of his damage is going to be electric, at least the major ones, other than his like first instance of basic attack and stuff. For Partition 4, I think crit damage is fine if you are running, for example, Woodpecker Electro. He gets a lot of crit rate already. In the early game, maybe you don't have enough crit rate, so you can start off first with a simple crit rate one, but he's one of the ideal characters that can shift towards a crit damage gear later on, just because of the sheer amount of crit rate stats that he gets, which is very nice for A rank character as well. Other than that, if you are in the early game, maybe attack percentage you can consider if you can't find a good crit rate gear and stuff, but you should be quite fine with Anton too. So now let's head on to the W engines, which I think is probably an important one to talk about. And of course, if you're finding value in this video so far, do give us a like, subscribe for more of such content, and let me know in the comments below which is the next character you hope to see. We've already done a lot of build guides on the channel, but do let me know what is the more urgent ones, and I'll prioritize those if there's demand. So attack ones. Basically 5 stars are interesting, especially even though you have something, for example, like this here. If let's say you got a steel cushion, you get a lot of base stats as well as massive amounts of crit rate from stuff like this. So even though it might not be seemingly ideal for him in terms of subs, it's still usable and decent as well, but it might be better off for your other attack characters, especially the steel cushion. If you're playing Billy, which all of us have, or you're playing Corin, you can consider putting this on them, but it's still not useless on a character like Anton. It's very good stats. Brimstone S1 is actually pretty strong, and just bear with me a bit, I'll go into free-to-play options shortly, but I want to talk about the ones that I think are going to be quite strong for him. Brimstone, probably going to be the best stat stick, gives him massive amounts of attack, gives him massive amounts of attack percentage. Given that you want to run energy regeneration on him most of the time, you actually want more attack stats from other sources so that you can bump up the attack stat, because you are running your position 6 with an attack percentage most of the time. You want to run the energy regen. So attack gear is very complementary to the energy regen 6 build, because you can find a lot of attack percentage in a lot of these W engines. Upon hitting enemy with basic, dash, dodge, increase attack stacks very nicely. I think this is very fantastic. It gives him even more attack that he requires. Deep Sea Visitor, again, is mostly for eyes. If you pull this for some reason, it's a massive stat stick. 48 base attack is the highest, I think, out of all of the attack gear. But I won't dwell too much on it. So for Street Superstar, I do believe the only free one is Starlight Engine right now, but I could be wrong. But Street Superstar here, attack percentage, whenever a squad member launches a chain attack, the equipper gains 1 charge stacks, gaining up to 3 stacks, and upon using the ult, consumes all stacks and increase the ult damage by 15%. I think this is actually quite okay if you have nothing better, because his ult actually does quite a lot of damage, a huge massive AoE as well, kills all squishies very fast. If you are looking to burst down squishies, I think Street Superstar is quite a solid way for Anton as well. Just make sure he's the last one to enter the battlefield. Next up is the Starlight Engine. This is a free-to-play one. Dodge counter, quick assist, increases whereas attack by 12 seconds. 12% for 12 seconds. This unfortunately is not very synergistic with Anton's playstyle because you hardly would dodge counter or quick assist, given as you can see how he's usually being played is mostly when the enemy is already stunned so that they get damage amplification when he's doing his whole channeling, drilling and stuff like that. So I don't really like this too much because of the synergy with his overall kit. Next up is Starlight Replica Engine, which increases physical damage against the target by 36% for 8 seconds. This is for a range unit. You have to be at least 6 meters away, so that is the downside. This is more of a melee weapon rather than a character like Anton. Anton is very melee, very close up, so you're unlikely going to get this 6 meters away for the most part. Let's talk about the other A ranks, and we can discuss. Cannon Rotor is of course a battle pass one. It's going to be very solid. Drill Rig Red Axis. This gives him energy regen in the advanced stats, and when launching an EX special attack or chain attack, electric from basic attacks and dash attacks increase 50% for 10 seconds, triggers once every 15 seconds. This in my opinion is his best in slot. I think this is probably going to be best. His rotation generally is quite long because you need to get the energy up. Running this energy regen together with energy in the 6th slot, I think is very fine for him. You get tons and tons of energy to help increase your rotation. Remember, the more energy you have on this character, the better your rotations. But I can argue that if you have already so much energy and you're playing with other characters that maybe battery you, you could consider swapping your position 6 disc drive to attack percentage rather than energy regen, especially those of you who have drill, rig, red assist. I don't think it's free to play. Let me just do a filter and see. Is it free to play? Yeah, so it's not free to play, it's a gacha engine, so it's something worth considering as well, that it's not completely affordable because it's still a little bit of gacha. For Housekeeper, this one is mostly for Corrin. Gives her attack percentage or gives attack percentage while off field. Equipper's energy regen increases. I like this a lot for Anton even. When an EX special attack hits an enemy, Equipper's physical damage increases by 3%. Stacking up to 15 times and lasting 1 second. So don't really like physical attack too much, and that's why these aren't really very fantastic as well. Anything physical is not really to the playstyle of Anton. That's why electric is way better for him. And I don't really like this as much. But this first part here on the energy regen does feel quite nice for him. But if you have Drill Rig, definitely is number 1. Cannon Rotor, of course, is very solid as well. Gives you crit rate, gives you good amounts of attack, increases attack by 7.5%. Since you're running a lot of energy regen anyway, having this attack percentage is very beneficial. Landing crit on enemy, inflict additional damage once every 8 seconds, which is probably twice every Anton rotation, which is quite nice to have in general too. So, summarize, long story short, I think Drill Red Axis is probably the best A rank. If you have any of the S rank, Brimstone probably is the best. Steel Cushion and Deep Sea Visitor are stat sticks. And if you are looking for something else, Cannon Rotor is pay to win. Cannon Rotor likely is going to be quite competitive with Drill Red Axis as well. We're doing more testing videos on the channel once we get the resources up. We're still in pretty early game here as well. And last but not least, let's talk a bit about team compositions for Anton. I think that he's very important for you to proc shock. So look for characters, at least one, like Anbi Dvara, which we all have for free. Rena or Grace likely will be his solid teammates. Of course, not all of you have so many characters in your account, so just try to mix and match. Those are the thoughts that I have. And if you found this video helpful, do like and subscribe, and check out the builds for the other characters that you are looking for. I already likely have them on the channel. And thank you again so much for watching, and see you in the next video.